This week on Mags on Media, why a leading political commentator says a war on the media is a war on democracy. Why 6 seconds will continue to be the sweet spot for advertising as we head into 2019. And copywriters, beware, the robots are coming for your jobs. We'll take a look at the world's first ever commercial written entirely by artificial intelligence. Well, a very warm welcome, and we're going to start with this. And this past week, ENCA was involved in a standoff with Cabinet Minister Bathabile Dlamini after one of her staff banned us from covering an event that she was speaking at. She has denied the incident ever took place and has instituted an internal investigation. ENCA stands by its story, and we look forward to her further response. But that issue also highlights perhaps a broader problem, and it's eloquently raised by well-known political commentator Ralph Mathekga, senior researcher at the Centre for Humanities Research at the University of the Western Cape. He's also the author of When Zuma Goes and Ramaphosa's Turn. And he writes that this is a problem right across the globe. The media is under siege as some governments have taken a hostile posture towards a free press or a free media. Ralph, a very warm welcome. In what way then are we under siege?
Well, you know, Jeremy, there is a growing anti-establishment sentiment. And usually anti-establishment sentiment used to be a purview of smaller groups in society. Sometimes it will be the leftists, it will be the anarchists in the past. But what we are seeing these days is that it is actually by mainstream political parties that have actually are formally part of the processes. So political parties are part of the processes. Leaders who lead those parties are part of formal processes. But the core of their message is actually to discredit the mainstream, to discredit the center of legitimacy in our politics.
And what has forced them to take that position, whether it's in the United States of America, whether it's in Europe, or even in this country?
The unfortunate part, Jeremy, is that democratic governance in the last 30 years or so, since some of the countries that democratized in the 90s, there has been a sense of a lull. People have relaxed. People, I think Democrats were not actually being accountable to the people. So you have a decline of legitimacy at the center. Therefore, you have this opportunistic elements within societies, usually bigots, usually extremists. They take the form of the host country, but the central message is that they are extremist, they are intolerant, they are against the mainstream media. Their message is to attack and delegitimize the mainstream media, and also to delegitimize the mainstream politics. They attack the judges, they attack the mainstream institutions of democracy. That is what we are seeing globally.
So if the media is then the enemy, as you're suggesting, of this particular constituency, what then is the impact of this behavior? And let's bring it back to our situation here at ENCA, when, for instance, cameras are banned from a legitimate government event to which the media had every right, but a responsibility as an advocate for its audience to cover.
The goal here, Jeremy, is to delegitimize media houses such as your ENCA. I mean, personally myself, I come talk to colleagues here at ENCA a few times. You come, you do an interview, a leader of a political party goes out there and tweets and say that you are aligned with network just because you have got an independent mind, and there are platforms where you are expressing those. So this culture of intolerance, it actually delegitimized the media, it delegitimized the message. The sad part, Jeremy, how it impacts upon our society is that in this society where we are, a lot of people across there still need to get access to ENCA. It has not reached sufficiently enough, in my view. You need to reach to the people. But while you are struggling with extending your terrestrial, reaching out to the people, educating the voters, now the voters, unfortunately, they have to deal with this thing that is being said by politicians that, oh, the platform is not legitimate. The platform is pushing a particular agenda. It is so tragic to the importance of democratic consolidation here.
What happens then if this culture of intolerance, as you suggest, continues again in this country, particularly ahead of an election next year and with a wider scope?
My biggest fear, Jeremy, is that as we are frustrated with social issues, we are frustrated with policy, we are frustrated with crime, then you see the creeping of what we call the strong man syndrome within our politics. What happened to societies such as ours? You end up being governed by a strong, intolerant individual who have been elected democratically, but they are not Democrats. And what do? They close the social space. It is a full circle back to that issue of benign dictatorship that people are talking about, which for me, it's actually insane to even imagine such kind of a situation.
One suggestion that you made in an article that we've based this interview on, and the article was carried on News 24, you say this: if one organizational department decides to bar a media house from covering events, the most appropriate thing is for other journalists to boycott coverage of such an organization. Failing to act in solidarity is another problem for the media. That was also echoed by Professor Anton Harber from Wits University, who spoke on the same issue a little earlier this week. Great in theory, but the media is not really going to do that, is it?
This is where the problem is, Jeremy, because it affects me today in a particular media house, and the other media house, they don't come in solidarity. It affects me because of the view that I have towards that political party or maybe that minister who's deciding that they are going to block me from covering the story. Today it doesn't matter. The next day it goes to the other. It set a precedent that says that people can actually get away with it. I believe in diverse media. I mean, I talk to various media houses on a given day. I don't agree with everything else. I exercise my critical mind. But I want to see all those views coming out and being expressed. I don't want to be in a situation where when the view is uncomfortable, other journalists feel it's uncomfortable, they don't get into solidarity with the media that is under siege. The thing is that it's not a target of one media house. It is the whole sector, but one media house can be an entry point here.
Everyone is tired, I understand the argument, but
Exactly.
surely the balance is you've got to find the solidarity on the one hand against the competitive nature of the media on the other.
If there is no solidarity based on the belief that everyone has to report fairly and honestly to that idea, if there is no solidarity to the idea that we deserve access, politicians and those who exercise power, they are obligated to respond to it. It's not a favor, Jeremy. It's an obligation. If there is no solidarity to that, irrespective of how differently we cover, then that competitiveness, we are not going to have it. We're headed to a situation where you're going to end up with almost one state media. Those ideas about regulating the media and coming up with a patriotic media house, the fascination with those ideas, Jeremy, they're there within our society, and I'm worried about those things.
Some very serious food for thought. Political commentator, writer, author Ralph Mathekga, thank you very much indeed. Next on the programme, why a global soft drink company is taking a new optimistic approach to its social media offering, and why 6 seconds is set to remain the sweet spot for advertising in 2019.